I need to tell you something before I die, because when I'm gone, there will be only one person left who remembers what our family used to be. My name is Dorothy, I'm 74 years old, and I am a murderer. Not the kind that gets arrested, not the kind that goes to prison. I'm the kind that kills with trust, with hope, with a medicine cabinet full of promises that turned into nightmares. This is the story of how I watched my son and daughter-in-law die, inch by inch, and how my granddaughter and I became refugees in our own home. The late afternoon light filters through windows that haven't been cleaned in months, illuminating dust particles that dance like ghosts in the air of her small ranch house in Lima, Ohio. On every surface, photographs tell the story of systematic disappearance. Family portraits with faces that vanish year by year, until only to remain. You want to know what evil looks like? It looks like a doctor's prescription pad. It looks like a white pill bottle with a child-proof cap that couldn't protect children from what was inside. This story starts with death, and it ends with death, but the middle. The middle is where we learned that there are worse things than dying. There are worse things than grief. There's watching someone you love disappear while their body is still breathing. February 14, 2004. Valentine's Day. The day Eduardo Morales, her husband of 33 years, collapsed in their kitchen while making morning coffee. Diabetes complications, the doctor said. A quick death, they said. A blessing, they said. Eduardo was 63, born in Guadalajara, came to Ohio in 1967, with nothing but calloused hands and a dream of building something permanent. He had this laugh that could fill up any room, this way of making people feel like they mattered. When he died, I thought the house would never feel warm again. I was wrong. What came next made me long for the clean pain of grief. Danny was 34 when his father died, Eduardo's only son. The child who had inherited his father's work ethic and his mother's stubborn streak. An electrician like his dad, married to Cheryl since 1996, father to 17-year-old Kayla, who was weeks away from graduating valedictorian of her high school class. For 3 months after the funeral, we held each other up. Danny worked extra hours to pay for Eduardo's medical bills. Cheryl cooked Sunday dinners to keep us together. Kayla spent her evenings helping me sort through her grandfather's things. We were grieving, but we were grieving together. Then came May 18, 2004. The day that changed everything. The accident happened at 2:47 p.m., at a factory renovation downtown. A piece of heavy machinery, improperly secured, fell 18 feet and crushed Danny's left shoulder, 3 ribs, and punctured his lung. Emergency surgery, 3 days in the ICU, and a prognosis of 6 to 8 weeks of recovery. Dr. Marcus Richardson, I'll never forget his name or his face, was maybe 35 years old, had this confident way of talking that made you trust him immediately. Mrs. Patterson, he said to me in the hospital hallway, Danny's going to be in significant pain for the next few months. I'm prescribing OxyContin. It's a new extended-release formula, much safer than older pain medications. Very low risk of addiction. Very low risk. Those 3 words killed my family. The first prescription was for 80 milligrams, twice daily for 2 weeks. By the end of week 1, Danny was taking them every 8 hours instead of 12. By week 3, he was asking for stronger doses. By week 6, he was visiting emergency rooms in 3 different counties, claiming he'd lost his prescription. I knew something was wrong when I found him in Eduardo's workshop at 3 a.m. trying to fix a clock that had been broken for years. His hands were shaking, he was sweating, and when I asked if he was okay, he looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize, and said, "I just need to stay busy, Mom. I just need to stay busy." Cheryl was the first to understand what was happening. She'd been researching Danny's symptoms online, reading about something called withdrawal, something called tolerance, something called physical dependence. I'll never forget the day she came to me, probably August 2004. She was crying, holding a printout from some medical website, and she said, "Dorothy, I think Danny is addicted to his pain pills. Addicted, like he was some kind of criminal, some kind of weak person who couldn't control himself." My son wasn't weak. My son was a victim. But nobody tells you that when you're watching someone you love disappear into a prescription bottle. By September 2004, Danny was spending $200 a day on pills bought from street dealers when doctors wouldn't prescribe more. By October, Cheryl had started taking them to first to understand what Danny was experiencing, then to cope with the stress of watching their savings disappear. Kayla was supposed to start Miami University in fall 2004. Full scholarship, pre-med program, going to be a doctor like the one who destroyed her father. Instead, she deferred for a year, then another year, then stopped talking about college altogether. Do you know what it's like to watch an 18-year-old girl become the parent in her own household? Do you know what it's like to watch her count pills, hide money, lie to teachers about why she missed school again? Christmas 2004 was the last normal day they would ever have as a family. Danny and Cheryl were between dealers, going through withdrawal, but present and trying. Kayla had cooked dinner, turkey and mashed potatoes, and Eduardo's favorite flan recipe that he'd taught her. For 4 hours, we pretended everything was okay. Danny helped Kayla with her college application essays. Cheryl showed me pictures of a dress she wanted to buy for Kayla's graduation. We took pictures by the tree, and if you looked at those photos today, you'd see a normal American family having a normal Christmas. That was the last picture we ever took, where everyone was really there. By January 2005, the pills weren't enough anymore. Danny had built up such a tolerance that he needed increasing amounts just to function normally. When pills became too expensive, sometimes $30 each on the street, someone told him about something cheaper. Heroin. $20 for something that would last all day, instead of $300 for pills that lasted a few hours. Danny explained it to me like it was a logical business decision. "It's the same thing, Mom," he said. "Same family of drugs. Just more cost-effective." Cost-effective. My son was comparing heroin prices like he was shopping for groceries. The transformation was immediate and devastating. Within weeks, Danny and Cheryl were shooting heroin multiple times a day. Their house became a revolving door of dealers, users, and desperate addicts looking for their next fix. I tried everything. Interventions that ended with Danny screaming at me to mind my own business. Treatment centers that kept them clean for 30 days, before they relapsed. Tough love that lasted exactly 1 day before I was giving them money again, because I couldn't stand to see them sick. Do you know what withdrawal looks like? Your son vomiting for hours, his body shaking so violently he can't hold a glass of water. Your daughter-in-law, crying and begging for just one pill, just enough to make the pain stop. And you, standing there with enough money in your purse to end their suffering. Having to decide if helping them means killing them. Kayla became Dorothy's partner, in an impossible situation. By 2006, at age 19, she was alternating between enabling her parents and trying to save them, never knowing which approach might work. We developed a system. Kayla would hide money in different places around my house, not enough for them to overdose, but enough to keep them from getting so sick they'd do something desperate. I would monitor their breathing while they slept, checking every hour to make sure they were still alive. Some nights, I would pray. Not for them to get better, I'd stopped believing that was possible. I would pray for them to die peacefully in their sleep, so Kayla wouldn't have to find their bodies. 2007 brought the first overdose. Danny collapsed in Kayla's bathroom, blue-lipped and barely breathing. Kayla performed CPR while Dorothy called 911, and somehow they got him back. The paramedic was maybe 25 years old, and as they were loading Danny into the ambulance, he looked at Kayla and said, "How many times has this happened?" When she said it was the first time, he just nodded and said, "It won't be the last." Like he was telling her it was going to rain tomorrow. The overdoses became routine. Danny twice more, in 2007. Cheryl 3 times in 2008. Each time, Dorothy and Kayla would hold their breath, perform the desperate mathematics of rescue breathing and chest compressions, and pray to whatever god still listened to broken families. We became experts in things no family should know. The difference between unconscious and overdosed. How long you could go without oxygen before brain damage. Which hospitals asked fewer questions. Which paramedics had seen us before. By 2009, we weren't living anymore. We were just managing death, postponing it, negotiating with it. Every day was about keeping Danny and Cheryl alive, until the next day. And every night was about preparing for the phone call that would tell us we'd failed. The call came on March 22, 2009, at 6:17 a.m. Cheryl had overdosed in the parking lot of a Walmart where she'd gone to buy Narcan, the overdose reversal drug that had become as essential as groceries in their household. The police officer who came to tell us was kind. He'd seen this before, he said. Lots of times. He asked if we wanted to view the body, and Kayla said yes before I could stop her. 22 years old, and she had to identify her mother's corpse in a morgue that smelled like disinfectant and death. I held Kayla in that parking lot while she sobbed, and I made her a promise I knew I couldn't keep, that we would save Danny, that we wouldn't lose anyone else, that somehow this nightmare would end with someone still alive. But Danny couldn't survive the guilt of watching his wife die. The overdose that killed Cheryl had been meant for both of them. They'd shared the same batch, the same needle, the same desperate need to escape reality. Danny had been revived. Cheryl hadn't. He blamed himself for being the one who introduced her to heroin. He blamed himself for not dying with her. He blamed himself for still being alive when she wasn't. And I blamed myself for not being able to take away his pain. Danny lasted 6 more months. 6 months of trying to get clean. 6 months of relapsing. 6 months of looking at me with eyes that begged for forgiveness I couldn't give because there was nothing to forgive. On September 15, 2009, exactly 5 years and 4 months after his first prescription, Danny was found in his car outside the very pharmacy where they used to pick up Eduardo's diabetes medication. The needle was still in his arm, and according to the coroner, he'd been dead for several hours. Kayla was the one who identified his body too. 22 years old, and she'd identified both her parents' corpses in the same morgue within 6 months. When we walked out of that building, she looked at me and said, "Grandma, it's just us now. Just us, 22 and 65, the only witnesses to what our family used to be, the only ones who remembered Eduardo's laugh, Danny's terrible jokes, Cheryl's way of humming while she cooked, the only ones who knew that before the pills, we had been happy." The years that followed were about learning to live in a house designed for 5 people, but occupied by 2. Dorothy, suddenly ancient at 65, and Kayla, old beyond her years at 22, navigating a world that felt simultaneously too big and too small for their grief. Kayla got a job at Lima Memorial Hospital, the same hospital where her father had received his first prescription. She worked in medical records, filing away the stories of other families, other tragedies, other lives interrupted by medicine that was supposed to help. For 5 years, from 2009 to 2014, Dorothy and Kayla created a new kind of family. Smaller, quieter, marked by absence, but genuine in its love and fierce in its survival. We had rituals. Sunday dinners where we cooked Eduardo's recipes and told stories about Danny and Cheryl from before. Movie nights where we'd watch old comedies and pretend to laugh. Holidays where we'd visit their graves and leave flowers and updates about our lives. I thought we'd made it. I thought we'd survived the worst thing that could happen to a family. I thought the nightmare was over. But trauma is its own kind of poison, and it had been sitting in Kayla's body for years, changing her brain chemistry, making her vulnerable to the very thing that had destroyed everything she'd ever loved. It started in 2014. Kayla was 27, working full-time, had even started dating someone, a nice boy named Marcus, who worked in the hospital cafeteria. She seemed happy, or at least like someone who was learning how to be happy again. The first sign was insomnia. Kayla couldn't sleep, couldn't turn off the images of her parents, couldn't stop reliving every moment of their long dying. A doctor prescribed sleeping pills just temporarily, he said, just until the trauma symptoms improve. The same words. The same promises. The same white bottles, with the same child-proof caps, that couldn't protect anyone from what was inside. I watched it happen again. The same progression, the same stages, the same desperate promises and failed interventions. But this time was worse, because Kayla knew exactly what was happening to her, and couldn't stop it. Unlike her parents, who had stumbled into addiction accidentally, Kayla was fighting a battle she understood completely. She knew where it led, knew how it ended, knew that every pill brought her closer to the same grave that held her mother and father. She tried so hard to get clean. Rehab, therapy, support groups, medication-assisted treatment. But the trauma was too deep, the pain too raw, the genetic predisposition too strong. And I was too old, too tired, too broken to save anyone anymore. The last conversation we had, she was sitting right there in that chair you see by the window. It was March 14, 2016, exactly 7 years after her mother died. She looked at me with Eduardo's eyes, and Danny's stubborn expression, and said, "Grandma, I'm so tired of fighting." I told her to fight one more day. Just one more day, and we'd figure it out together. I told her I loved her. I told her she was all I had left. I told her Eduardo and Danny and Cheryl were watching from somewhere, and they wanted her to live. She died that night, March 15, 2016. I found her the next morning in the same bathroom, where her father had overdosed 7 years earlier, with the same peaceful expression on her face. The same needle in her arm, the same terrible silence that follows when someone you love disappears forever. Dorothy has been alone for 8 years now. 8 years of sitting in a house that once held 5 people, and now echoes with the memory of voices that will never call her name again. I am 74 years old, and I am the last witness to what my family used to be. When I die, and I will die soon, there will be no one left who remembers Eduardo's laugh, or Danny's terrible jokes, or Cheryl's way of humming while she cooked, or Kayla's dreams of becoming a doctor. This is what the opioid crisis looks like from the inside. Not statistics, not policy debates, not news stories about other people in other places. This is the sound of a house that used to be full of love and laughter, now occupied by one old woman, counting down the days until she can join the people who were stolen from her by pills that were supposed to help. I sit in this chair every afternoon, and I wait. I wait for my heart to stop, for my breathing to slow, for whatever merciful thing will finally reunite me with my family. Because you can't lose everyone you've ever loved, and call what's left living. If you're still listening, if you made it to the end of this story, maybe you're thinking about the pills in your medicine cabinet. Maybe you're thinking about your own family, your own children, your own trust in doctors, who promise that this time will be different. Don't trust them. Don't believe the promises. Don't let them tell you it's safe, it's temporary, it's necessary. Because somewhere in America right now, another grandmother is sitting in another chair, watching another family disappear one prescription at a time. And when it's over, when everyone you love is gone, you'll sit alone, like I am now, wondering how pills that were supposed to heal ended up being the most efficient way to destroy everything you ever cared about. This is my testimony. This is my warning. This is the last gift I can give to families who still have time to save themselves. Learn from my loss. Run from my pain. And never, ever trust a doctor who tells you there's no risk in taking pills that feel like salvation. My name is Dorothy Mae Patterson, and I am the last person alive who remembers what it felt like when my house was full. Don't let your house become as empty as mine.